it affects every area of your life. You experiencing such a level, you're never here, you're always here. It's like the kids are prey. They can't go outside and play. You find yourself making sure it's video games in your home. Whatever you're doing, you're making private arrangements for your family to do private things so that they can be safe.
A lot of people that be in the neighborhood, like, they don't know that they traumatized. Right. They think that that's the normal thing. Like, they just think that they more aware, because it make you be a lot of aware of your surroundings. Like, even if you hear a leaf or something fall behind you, you turning around because you thinking somebody's sneaking up on you, trying to do something to you.
I'm going to actually start with a question to frame our conversation around the root causes of violence, particularly among communities of color. Now, may I start with, what is structural violence?
It's a great question. And the root causes, I'm glad that we're starting with, because oftentimes people look at the individual factors and don't pay attention to the larger context.
Structural violence is the institutional's role of involvement of denying individuals the opportunity to receive resources to promote their humanity. This has an ugly legacy that I like to trace all the way back to the justification of slave-based economy.
In the first
right?
place. Yep.
You know, so saying that people of African descent and non-Christians are subject to servitude, right? And that thread continued through Jim Crow era, and it continues through this day. Community violence is at the tip of the iceberg, and what we're really looking at is what's happening under the sea, tied to policies and practices related to race and racism. So housing, health, education, workforce. When you don't have that, then you're at the highest risk for being involved, for choosing ways that could be deleterious towards your family, towards your community.
I feel like they want us to be doing what we're doing. I feel like they don't want us to be what we're supposed to be. They want us to be trapped. They really like what's going on, us destroying ourselves. Because if they didn't, they'll do better.
How does this structural violence manifest as what we're talking about today, firearm-related injuries?
I've never worked with a child who said, I just want to be bad and I want to shoot at people. And so when we talk about structural violence, denying access to employment, fair housing, or just quality housing, all of these things are needed for people to survive. And when people don't have those things met, they will find other creative ways. And that can also cause people to have stress. And how people deal with stress is learned behavior.
When someone is denied humanity, what do they want? They want justice. Because these systems have failed us over multiple generations, and now it failed grandma, it failed mom, it failed you, you don't trust institutions like the police, because who do I trust to help heal the harm that I'm experiencing by losing someone? I'm gonna take justice in my own hands, and it's a cyclical effect.
You know how they go to war in the Army? That's no different than what's going on the streets.
That's actually how I got shot the first time, because I grew up in a neighborhood that was rough. So the boys kind of affiliated me with the people they was in tour with. So they didn't care that I wasn't a gang member. All they cared was they wanted to get some type of leg back for whatever they had going on, which still to this day I never knew. So everybody is a target that is not their people. It's like nobody is safe.
Someone gets traumatically injured by a firearm. That trauma is actually a small t trauma, right? It's the physical injury.
Right.
The capital T trauma is a lot harder to solve.
Right.
Because it envelops you.
Right.
Right? And when you talk to some of these families, it's just, you say to yourself, how are you still standing
Yeah.
with all of the capital T trauma?
Right.
How do we inform our staff around trauma-informed care to help them deal with that capital T trauma?
Trauma-informed means not so much of what's wrong with you, but what happened to you. How can you be responsive and not reactive? How can you normalize and validate what a person's experiencing? What are the things that you can do to not further re-traumatization?
What are ways that this trauma manifests? They come to the emergency department, they are stripped naked on a stretcher, and they start cursing out everybody in the room.
Yeah.
And the response is, let's call security.
Yeah.
Talk to me about what that looks like.
You have to be prepared to expect the unexpected. People tend to stereotype and think that, okay, trauma victims or survivors should present in a certain way. No, for our kids, it could be mouthing off and cursing out to protect themselves, right? Because they've been so badly traumatized that I need to know if you're safe or not, and it's better for me to curse you out because then I will know instantaneously who you are to me.
You cannot generate a relationship with them if you are not taking a trauma-informed approach to understand that there's a lot that they're dealing with. How can I advocate for you? How can you drive the conversation so I can establish trust with you? That's fundamentally important.
I was shot when I was 22. I was shot in the face, the back of the neck, twice in the shoulder. When I got at the hospital, they were quite, well, I was nervous. It was my first time going through something like that, very traumatic. So the whole time, I really kind of blocked the doctors and stuff out. But it was this one guy that he held my hand through the whole process. I didn't have Illinois insurance, so I kind of was pushed to the side. My bed was in the hallway. I didn't have a room. Until the second day when they were discharging me, I got a room. I didn't get the nurses that were coming in to check on me to see was I okay or to make sure that my pain level was down or anything like that. I was kind of pushed to the side and discharged.
Losing loved ones or hearing about losing loved ones, how often do you hear about this?
I be hearing about stuff like that, like almost every month, if not every day.
Okay.
It'll just be like somebody you know, somebody they know will end up getting killed or getting hurt, like in some type of way. And you just going off the energy that they giving you, cause you see them hurt or see them talking about it, and then it'll just come to you.
We call it continuous traumatic stress. The violence or the harm, the traumatic exposure is truly faceless and unpredictable in those situations. So it's not really a post-trauma because as people have been re-traumatized over and over and over again.
I was critically wounded in my right side of my upper chest, traveling across to an inch away from my heart.
How many people would you say were affected by what happened to you?
You're talking about hundreds of people, probably thousands of people. Everyone that knew about it, that knows about it, they were completely devastated. I have 3 children, so I didn't know what to say to them. I couldn't bring myself to sharing that their mom was shot.
How can we as the medical community do more to advocate in this space around not just secondary prevention after someone's been hurt, but primary prevention?
You know, in our city, there's so many community mental health agencies have been closed down, right? So in psychiatry and psychology or mental health in our field, you know, mental health parity, making sure that I've had a kid who had 50 plus reconstructive surgeries related to trauma, but could not get mental health, right? And the parity speaks to like, hey, why should there be a discrepancy? So providers being able to work on that front. So being able to provide the mental health to deal with, for example, structural racism, dealing with whatever other mental health concerns that families bring in can also. Again, it's not a direct relationship to firearm violence, but we really have to work our way towards people not using firearms as an option. So we have to give them other options.
What are some things that physicians can do that are above and beyond their clinic, the operating room, the trauma bay, to be involved in addressing structural justice?
We have such a unique power and privilege that can really help shape policies, and really what can providers do to get involved with policy work. We have to go into the structural spaces, the spaces where people make those decisions, and how can we have more influence, and how can training programs support the development of providers to be in spaces like that.
How can we use our voices?
How can we use our voices beyond just patient advocacy in the patient hospital? Be a part of the struggle.
Get out the sidelines.
Yep.
Jump into the fray.
Jump in.
Get into good trouble.
Get into good trouble, absolutely.